I went on nearly 80 first dates in 12 months of being single. And as a dating coach, writer, almost an author, I have some tips I'd really like to share with you about converting to the first date. Now, I didn't go on 80 first dates to be like a player or to practice Riz. My goal was to find high caliber women I was very attracted to and get them on a first date. So that way, in the long run, I could date the right woman to uplevel my life. I've tested and refined what actually works if that's your objective. Instead of getting ghosted or being a pen pal for forever, I have the tools for you to get those first dates that maybe haven't been connected so far. If that resonates, then this video is for you. In fact, I'm distilling all of this in my upcoming community and the book that's going to be published in a few months. So if you want to stay tuned for more free resources, more valuable resources, maybe courses, stuff like that, check out the link in the description and I'll give you all my updates there. But we're going to get you some good takeaways today. So first, let's talk about why you need to get them off the apps or off of texting ASAP. Nowadays, attention is currency. So if you're just texting or messaging them or fire emojing their stories, you are not differentiating from everything else that is asking for their attention for all these other dopamine hits. You need to differentiate yourself upfront. In addition to that, messaging, texting, emoji reacting to stories, however else you might slide into their life, that's not really giving you an advantage because you are not displaying your tone, your characteristics, your quirks, all these things that women actually are attracted to that they're not used to seeing from men in the beginning. You want to lead, not to linger. So you don't want to be the funniest texter. You don't want to have the most Riz in the messages. You want to convert them to scheduling a first date with you as fast as possible. You win by being the guy who knows what he wants, is going to directly ask for it. I don't want to be prescriptive, but to boil this down in an easy implementable strategy, there's something called the 3-message max rule. So if you're matching on the apps or say you approached a woman and you got her number in public, either way, you send one text to express that, hey, I'm glad we're matched and I'm interested in you. And this one can be a little bit of Riz or playful or whatever, but use something you know about her. Don't use a canned line. So after message 1, message 2 is however she replies, use that as an opportunity for playful banter. Don't make it about you. Again, don't use any cheesy lines, but use it so it's a unique response. Message 3, say something along the lines of, hey, I'm not here to be a pen pal. Can I get your number or can I take you out sometime? So you would say, can I get your number if you're on the apps or on Instagram? Because you're getting them off of this overstimulating, inundated app to actually having some real contact information. If you already have gotten her number because you approached her in the wild, you want to seal the first date instead of playing this pen pal, I'm stuck in text message purgatory game. So regardless of how you got her number, whether you approached her or you match with her in the apps or it's Instagram or wherever, Facebook, dating is a thing now, you want to send her a voice message as soon as possible. All those other things we talked about that messaging doesn't have, voice messaging does. They can hear your inflection. They can hear if you're excited. They can hear if you don't have to have a voice radio in order for a voice message to convey that kind of confidence. An optional step here is you could voice message asking for a FaceTime date, like a 5 to 15 minute FaceTime date before the first date, or you could just go right for the jugular and say, hey, of course, over voice message, I really enjoyed chatting with you, but I really want to get to know you in person. I'm an in-person person. Either route you go, if you take the initiative, try to schedule a time to do a FaceTime or a day and time to go out on a date. And it's important that you lead this because then she knows that you are setting the stage and the expectation of how things would go if you guys were to date in the future. Typically, whether it's live on FaceTime or it's a voice message, what really worked well for me was just saying the truth. I don't need to worry about being strategic or whatever. I just said, hey, you seem cool. I'm excited that we're vibing so far, but I really don't know anything about you. I would love to take you out on a proper first date so I have an opportunity to get to know you better and you can get to know me better. How does this sound? And if they say yes, that is when you start to plan out the details. I go into a lot more depth in my book on all of these principles and these strategies. But the idea is when you're proposing a date, propose the kind of date that you would want to take her on. Don't worry about what she might like because you don't know anything about her. And if women at any point during this process don't respond, or they ghost you, or they don't like your idea for a date, give them a little bit of grace, because they're inundated with guys just like you. If you want to differentiate, you're not simping, you're not pandering, you're just being patient. And patience is something a lot of us men, including myself, could practice a little more of. So use it as an opportunity to wait 7 to 10 days and then reach out again. At any point in this process, I would say twice. So we have the 3 message rule, but then the 2 times rule is following up twice after you don't hear anything. If they ghost you twice or they don't respond twice, and don't worry, double texting is totally okay. That's a stupid rule. I don't know who came up with that. Most of the highest caliber women I've ever dated, I had to double text them because they were busy or distracted, or other men were pursuing them. And if you're just like, oh, I'll text you once, the ball's in your court and you're ghosting me, that's not ghosting. You haven't even met them yet. So you need to be a little persistent in the beginning. But if you've really led with your best foot and you've tried to initiate the first date and you either get stood up on the first date or you've tried following up twice and she's never answered, then you can throw in the towel. So when you're trying to set the first date, offer 2 options. For example, if I know I'm free Tuesday and Thursday nights at the earliest 7 p.m. and I want to offer to take this woman out to dinner because that's my style of a first date. I like to have a sit down, focused conversation. I like to offer to pick them up because I believe in chivalry and it helps me differentiate from all the other plebeians out there. I will say, hey, this next week, Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m., I'd like to pick you up and take you out to dinner. Does one of those days work? If they respond and say, oh, neither of those days work for me, then ask, okay, what day would work for you next week? What day and time? A lot of guys say, oh, they're not going to meet my flexibility or they're not going to offer me a date in return. Then I'm done with this. Nah, we're men. We're supposed to lead. We're supposed to initiate. We're supposed to solve. Let the women decide based off of the options that we present. Continue presenting and don't get discouraged. Here are some common pitfalls with this whole process that I see a lot with the men I work with. You feel like you have to text all the time. You don't have to. I suggest that my clients touch base regularly. What does that mean? It depends on how busy you are, man. If she pops into your head and you're like, you know what? I'm excited to see her. I texted her Thursday last week and we set the first date, but it's now Monday. Our date is on Thursday this week. I'm just going to say, hey, I've been thinking about you. I'm excited for our date Thursday. I hope you're having a great week. That's it. You don't have to have a full length conversation, but also don't go too far to the other extreme where you're like, I have to pretend like I'm confident and busy so I can't text her when I'm thinking about her. That's silly. That's another way you're going to be just like everybody else. Similarly, if you wait too long to convert from messaging to number or number to first date and first date confirmation, it's going to fizzle. So you don't need to push for that really hard, but don't overthink it. Anytime that you're like, well, it's been a day or maybe 2 days and I haven't heard from her, follow up being like, hey, I'm sure you've been busy, but I was nailing down my calendar for next week. I want to know what you think. Does this date work for you? I'm really looking forward to meeting you. Don't say those things if they're not true, obviously, but they should be true. Otherwise, why are you taking this girl out on a first date? Could we always be better at this skill? Sure. And you're going to get better. You're going to get better with each time, which is half of the fun. However, if a woman chooses to remove themselves from the first date or communicating with you, there's probably a reason, and it likely has nothing to do with you. And if it has something to do with you, that's okay, because you're letting her filter herself out of your life. Instead of trying to pretend to be somebody you're not, you'll actually lock them down by being unabashedly yourself. And the women who aren't going to get along with you, they're going to see themselves out of this process. And the last tip on this whole piece that I'll share is every time that you get ghosted or someone says no, or you go on a first date and it doesn't go the way that you want, you're going to get better at this whole process. And eventually it'll be seamless. So like at first it's, oh, I got to remember this rule, or what about this? Don't worry about it. Just follow this general set of guidelines and make it your own. You'll find success with each repetition. You'll figure out, oh, this is really my style. Or I like what Chris said, but I want to switch it a little bit. The one last tip is a really powerful reframe. And it's that in order to become proficient in any skill, you need a lot of repetitions. I have a good friend that says repetition is the mother of all skills. And asking women out, converting from apps or texting or any kind of exposure to a first date is also a skill set. It's also something that requires high volume and proficiency. Now, I'm not saying you should ask out every woman that you meet, but if you're only matching with the women you're genuinely interested in, that you're genuinely magnetized or attracted to, and then you're doing your best to convert all of those to first dates, I think you'll be really happy, even when you're rejected, even when you're ghosted, even when the first date doesn't go well. because with each repetition, you're going to get better. And these are loose guidelines. So what you should do is use them as a foundation, but as you build up your proficiency, get more specific and more, not even accurate, more precise about how you feel best. Because my ideal first date might not be yours, because how I like to word these voice messages or how I like to banter might be different than yours. We just try something. And as long as you're following something that you enjoy, you think is fun or funny or exhibits your unique characteristics, the higher the likelihood that the really high caliber women who are looking for a high quality relationship, who are being sought after by a lot of guys, they're more likely to invest time with you. A lot of guys fail because they try to follow these bro science rules about dating and they end up being just like everyone else. So don't be afraid to be unabashedly yourself. So if you're tired of stale conversations, getting ghosted, not converting to first dates, and anything along these lines, follow me, subscribe. I got some free materials in that link I mentioned below. I got the book coming out, the community. I'm super pumped to do a lot more helpful videos like this. So let me know what helped, what you have questions on, and what you don't agree with. I always love discussing this kind of stuff. So be unabashedly yourself. That's key to everything. See you next time. Oh, I forgot. Right now, I have a free ebook on how to become the best version of yourself through routine, discipline, lifestyle to optimize testosterone and cognitive health, because that's what really sets you apart. It's free now, but once my self-help book is published and the community is around, that's not going to be free. So if you'd like to get it now while it's free, also go to the link in the description below.